Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you here at the Chamber this morning, starting bright and early on a Monday. My name is Will Landers. I'm the President and President of the Board here, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here to talk about a very interesting topic that I think is in everybody's mind in this challenging world that we're living in today, with increasing business complexity. Now more than ever, we think that having a discussion here with our members about cybersecurity and how to deal with that is something that we think is super important. So we're very happy to partner with commcepta and with bēnce, cybersecurity to lead, to have this discussion here with you today. And to lead the discussion, we have Romeu Machado, who's a founding partner and chief design officer at commcepta Design, an award-winning design management consulting based in Brazil, a member of the Chamber now for 10 years. He designed our own website, so check it out, because it's really amazing. And Romeu asked me not to talk about all his accolades, so I'm going to stop here and pass the word to him, but please look on the website, because we do have all the details about Romeu. Romeu's going to have a brief presentation, then he's going to present the speakers here today. So, Romeu, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, William, for the warm welcome. Everybody hear me good? Okay, welcome everybody. It's super special for us to be here. Thank you for the Chamber to embrace, and Fernanda and the entire team to run a lot to make this possible. So we are here to discuss strategic cyber resilience in turbulent times. We suggested the topic and we organized the panel for us to have interesting discussion around, as per what William mentioned. So we are living in times of great complexity. Cyber threats are growing more sophisticated, financial markets are volatile, regulations are tightening, and technology is evolving at record speed. The challenge for leaders is not simple to defend against disruption, but to anticipate change, respond with agility, and build resilience that enables them to bounce forward stronger. This morning, we are bringing together technology, finance, and cybersecurity experts to share their perspectives and actionable strategies. I also want to thank the panelists that I'll be presenting in a minute, and all the participants who join us today to expand their knowledge about the team and learn more about themselves. So before we dive into our discussion, I'd like to invite our panelists to join the panel. So I will start with Marciano Schaeffer. He is the founder and CEO of bēnce Cyberresilence. Please, Marciano, have a seat. I will invite also Rafaela Colombo. He is the Senior Executive Vice President and Deputy CEO of Safra Securities. Good morning. Thank you, Rafael. I will invite also Brian Bowling, Technology Solutions Specialist from Sharp USA. And the fourth panelist, William, he will be joining us soon. So, please, panelists, feel free to introduce and present yourself, starting with Marciano.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Romeu. It's an honor to us to be here. My name is Marciano Schaeffer, and I want to thank the Chamber for this invitation. Thank you, our colleagues of debate. Thank you to the audience to being here, and a special thank for my business partners, Everton and Rodolfo, for our journey so far. Thank you, guys. Well, before I introduce myself, can I show you one short video about bēnce? Okay? Romeu, can you play the video, please? It's in Portuguese, but we have subtitles in English. Okay?
Desde que o mundo se conectou, tudo mudou. Negócios viraram digitais, dados viraram ativos valiosos. E onde há valor, há risco. Complexo, constante, invisível. Cibersegurança não é mais uma escolha. É estratégia, é continuidade, é reputação. É o básico, bem feito. Nesse cenário, tecnologia não basta. É preciso ir além. É preciso liderança. Na bēnce chamamos isso de cibersegurança estratégica. Algo que fazemos todos os dias, com excelência, há mais de 20 anos. Trabalhamos ao seu lado, em colaboração, com cuidado, compromisso e resiliência, somando forças e experiências para compreender as necessidades únicas do seu negócio e evoluir a sua maturidade em cibersegurança. Porque não protegemos apenas dados e sistemas. Proteção está no nosso DNA. Defendemos as conexões que nos fazem seguir em frente e conectamos pessoas com o mesmo propósito: construir um mundo mais seguro, para que todos tenham a liberdade de focar no que realmente importa. Lidere com segurança, protegendo o que te move. Be the leader, bēnce.
Well, thank you for watching, guys. This video show one big part of our soul and our culture. bēnce. We are here today to talking about. Can I stand up? It's no problem. That's good. We are here today to talking about strategic cyber resilience in the turbulent times. It's a good term. Well, my name is Marcelo Schaeffer. I'm a CEO and co-founder at bēnce. I have over 30 years of experience in IT industry, working in the IT infrastructure, and in the last 24 years focusing on cybersecurity. At bēnce today we have more than 40 certified specialists in cybersecurity. They are divided in 5 sales teams. To us it's a dream team, and this team protect most 150 clients, active clients in their digital environments. Well, here we have some numbers in the actual scenario in cybersecurity in Brazil. This report is from Bascom. It's for this year, in July 25, I think. And interesting numbers here. We have a 79% of Brazilian organizations exposed cyber attack. It's a high number. It's a high number, and it's almost 80%. It's one big trouble. We have 60 billion of cyber attack attempts registered in Brazil in 2023, and 66% of IT teams reporting work overload caused by rise in cybersecurity incidents. More than these numbers, what we can see here is why this number happens. We have some troubles the company can be exposed, like environment complexity, low visibility, vulnerable credentials, low operational maturity, slow response, and isolated. Some of maybe sometimes these troubles are so basic to solve, but it's what we see in Brazil today. But I think we can mirror this to the other countries in the world. Okay.
Maybe change your microphone or something.
Okay, go ahead. Well, at bēnce we have 3 big premises, and these premises guide us for a long time. And when clients come to us to help in cybersecurity, we start from here. The first of all, it's basic well done. It's a mantra for us at bēnce. We really believe in that, because when we're talking about cybersecurity basics, it's most fastest way to implement cybersecurity in your company, and sometimes, most of the times, it's the most fast way to recover your environment. Okay, this is the basic well done for us. The second one is maturity understanding. Most of the companies do not know where they are in the cybersecurity maturity. And we have experts to help the companies to make a plan and prioritizing their investments and identify gaps in cybersecurity. The third one is security to evolve. In our life, we need to evolve every day. In cybersecurity, it's not different. But sometimes we have a wrong way to thinking about evolve. We don't need to evolve 100% a year, every year. When we call on cybersecurity, it's preferred we evolve 1% a month, and this is one good evolution. The important thing here is not to stand still. Okay, you can be evolution everywhere. Well, just on curiosity, do you know what bēnce means? Our name bēnce was created with the marriage of these two words, cyber and resilience. It's our soul, our root name, why bēnce exists. Well, it's our portfolio. I'm not deep in this, but just to show you, we divide our portfolio in three pillars: proactive, active, and reactive. And as you can see, proactive and active pillars are ones with most services. It's we call prevention cybersecurity. Okay. When the customers need to use the reactive pillar, sometimes they're in trouble and they can spend a lot of money to repair and recover their environments. And well, we have some technology part, but it's our portfolio. So, well, it's our bold proposition to the market. We invite our customers to follow this bold proposition. It's one ambition. Lead the way, be the most cybersecurity organization in your business segment. We really believe cybersecurity can help the company to grow your business. Okay. It's a part of our strategy, 2030 strategy, delivering leading cyber resilience for client success. It's our main purpose, it's our mission, and it's why we wake up every day and work so hard. Okay. Well, the last one, and I invite our audience to think about these three questions because it's important and help you to protect your business. Basic well done. How can you implement the basic well done concept in your organizations? Maturity understanding. What common barriers prevent organization from understanding and advising their cybersecurity practice? And the last but not the least, secret to evolve. What mistakes do organizations often make by prioritizing complex solutions before mastering the basics and establishing solid foundation for continued growth? Okay. Well, that's it. Thank you for watching. I'm here to try to add something in the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Marciano. Thank you. I would like to invite Rafael, if you please.
So I'm Rafael Colombo. I've been with SAP for the past 20 years of my life. Prior to that, 15 years mostly in IT, serving organizations. So I changed side from the service provider to the user side, which is always an interesting move to make. I think the resilience in the cybersecurity keeps challenging us all the time. Throughout the last few years, I think with the advent of social media, with the exposure or increased presence, digital presence, the websites, connectivity, interaction with partners and clients in digital ways, everyone's footprint has been increasing. With that, the risk associated with it also increasing in a similar or even greater pace. So that no shortage of challenges there for us to manage. I think that the topic on doing the basic well is very relevant. Between technology, process, people. Let's start with people. Getting the folks with the right mindset. Understanding the capabilities, the technology that we have available, the toolkits, the toolbox that they have at their disposal to react to events. I haven't been to a massive cybersecurity disruption, Small ones is part of our lives. We all have been there in some shape before. And I think that's, it's as much as you can have a toolkit, a toolbox that has multiple pieces, multiple tools to use. Not any event is the same. Every event is going to have some uniqueness, has some specific challenges, and you need to be able to be creative on how to use the tools at your disposal to react. So, the basic is always where things can help to recover, but also a lot of times is where the problem starts, right? If you cannot get the basics done beforehand, that's where you open the opportunity for issues along the way. So I'm happy to contribute here. I think my technology background early in my career may not be so relevant nowadays, but I'm the one that has generally losing my sleep on trying to make sure that from our side we're covering the basics as well as we can. So pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafaela. We would like to welcome William Carabano. He's the founder and CEO of Ahuno, is that correct? Corp. So right now I want to invite Brian. Please, feel free.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the invitation here today. I'm going to introduce you to Sharp. We're Sharp Business Solutions. We're a division of Sharp Electronics Corporation. We're a Japanese company, but my group predominantly works in the US, but we do multinational projects around the world for companies and customers of all sizes and all industries. I personally have about 32 years in the industry, 10 years with British Telecom, working with Fortune 100, Fortune 1000 type customers, call center, voice data, satellite, terrestrial. IT, cybersecurity solutions since 1998. So what is that? Too long. It's been a while. About 8 years of that was dedicated to engineering and technical design architecture. I crossed the line from sales to engineering more times than I can count. And I always found that the more I understood about the technology, the better I could sell it and communicate it. So we're happy to be here. We are an MSSP. We are an MSP. We have about 250 individuals working around the country, 17 different branches and 31 different locations around the United States. We have partners like SentinelOne and Perch. We have a SOC. We have NOCs around the world. And it's all about mitigating risks and helping our customers develop best practices so that they can be more secure. And our solutions, Sharp manufactures lots of different equipment, from collaborative displays to multifunction printers, copiers. We acquired Dynabook, which is Toshiba Computing. We acquired NEC Displays of America, so that's now a part of the Sharp family. And we continue to invest. We're one of the few companies out there these days that are investing heavily, both on the manufacturing side, the product side, but also on the solution side, the application side, and the security side. Because if we don't have stable, secure networks, then customers aren't happy with their products. So one goes hand in hand with the other, and businesses really prefer, I think, to have that single relationship when they can. I'm going to touch on the industry. Interesting note, this is from IBM's report, 2025. We've seen a decrease from 2024 in the average breach cost, which is a little interesting tidbit. So I think the first time we've seen a reduction in the average number. And they think a lot of this has to do with AI. Of course, everyone's pushing AI, but it does come to mind that we're implementing all of our solutions, almost all of them, when they're SOC technologies. They utilize AI to analyze the data, hopefully to capture 0-day. And also we're seeing some reduction, I feel, as a result of people implementing some of the policies that we've been talking about for the last 10 years. So the technology, the investment, I think since COVID has really increased with the increase in activity from the bad actors. You've also seen a slight reduction in how long they're present, as well as time to remediation. These are all promising, just starting to come over that cusp. So hopefully this is the start of a trend that will see a reduction even as activities increase, and they will, right? They're not slowing down. The world is not becoming more stable. There are no silver bullets, right? This is an effort that we all have to collaborate on. I don't care if we're different parts of the company. I say it takes a village for this stuff. So talk to a lot of people, talk to us, talk to IBM, talk to EDS, talk to bēnce, so as many people as you can bring into the conversation to get those perspectives, it's really going to help you and help you evolve. Because that baseline fundamental baseball, as I call it, doing the basics well is really important, right? You have to set that baseline. You have to know where it is, and you have to be willing to fess up to a need, because a lot of people, they don't want to necessarily say they're doing anything wrong. And it's not that you're doing anything wrong, but we all know what the impacts are: damage to reputation, financial impacts. These are significant to businesses. This is not new. We all know the complexity of the threat landscape. We have multiple devices, people following policy in some cases, not following policies in other cases. There need to be ramifications for these things, and policies are really essential. So if you haven't documented policies, you need to document them. You need to keep them as living, breathing documents and strategies and plans, and that's what's going to help you to be more resilient long-term and to adapt and to be more agile. And this comes down to even people leaving paper on a copier, on a printer, right? So many pieces of personal information get lost that way, and that's one solution that we offer in terms of authentication of the device, to make sure that only the user who printed the job can release that job and capture that print job, so you're not accidentally picking up somebody's payroll. Just in the last year, it's a long list, and this is by no means the entire one, right? Just recently, Microsoft SharePoint, I can probably go through 4 or 5 different Microsoft incidents in the last year to 18 months. Not to mention Google. Jaguar Land Rover, I think, is still going through remediation as we speak. United Healthcare, we did a remediation in about 1/3 of the time that United Healthcare's took, which we're very proud of, but it was much smaller. So, in all fairness. But these are, again, this list is growing. These are targeted. They're from different types of attacks, different types of vectors. They can be from nation state to organized crime. They can be one country pretending to be another, right? There's all sorts of strategies. There's definitely asymmetric warfare going on. Destabilization is the key on a lot of different levels, whether it comes to cybersecurity or politics. I think around the world, people are looking to take advantage of all sorts of instability and really add to it, right? And that keeps us all on our back foot. So it adds to that conversation and collaboration that we need to have from the likes of Anonymous, Salt Typhoon, Lazarus. I don't know whether this is Apartment 28 or APT 28. I've heard it both ways. These are some of the bad actors. We all know it. We just need to be better at communicating, at putting the tools in place. And this is an investment conversation, right? This is policy, it's investment, and it's really us working together to make sure we can do our work, that we have a stable environment in which to have our customer data, our employees' information. They're the most valuable part of this conversation. Protect your employees. So the nation states are looking to accomplish certain things. Organized crime is looking to accomplish certain things. We all know, somebody's uncle in Nigeria who left a box full of money at the airport. That goes, that is somewhat organized, and it's getting more organized. And with the onset of AI, they're getting harder and harder to catch. So you're going to see fewer of the spelling mistakes, fewer of the bad language, fewer of the confusing things that used to be the red flags that you'd pick up on. And then, of course, the biggest threat, your employees, right? You know, you set the policy in motion. You know, in this corner we have firewalls, encryption, antivirus software, and in this corner we have Dave. And all of that is useless if Dave decides to give his password out to somebody claiming to be from IT support, you know? So it's not an easy situation, and it's one that requires us to be looking in our crystal ball, using what we know from our past, because we are animals that repeat, right? We're forgetful, but we definitely will repeat and try to improve on old technology. And again, this is not the complete list, so I know there's some things missing here, but there's a long list and it's not getting shorter, right? So new tools, analyzing the environment, documentation, right? The lovely spam email from the bank, you know, click on the link, you know, and how do you find those? How do you track them down? That comes down to cybersecurity awareness training, right? That becomes educating your employees, educating ourselves, and making sure that we're on top of things, making sure that if there's a spear phishing expedition, somebody knows to pick up the phone and call the person to say, hey, did you send this to me? I didn't send you anything, and this is a reply to something. Or, you know, if somebody's sending you new bank account information for you to forward your checks to and payments to, you know, pick up the phone. It's a little old school. I mean, shoot, you have the guys who had the video conference with their CFO, and they were deep fakes, right? So they thought they were talking to the right people. They were saying the right things. It sounded like the right things. But it's always good to take that extra step, pick up the phone, call the person. Right? Pick up the phone, call the bank. Don't click on the link. You guys all know this. This is not new information, but it's also, I think, repetitive. We need to hear it over and over again. Everybody does. Because this is the kind of information that just helps us to be a little bit more cautious, take a little bit more time, because, I mean, I've done it myself. You're double-clicking on things, triple-clicking on things, things stick, and then all of a sudden something else pops up, and you clicked OK, and you don't even know what you hit, right? And it can happen to the best of us. So at the end of the day, we want to fess up to it. We want to communicate with one another. We want to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. My favorite is ransomware. You know, we've got different flavors of it. There's locking ransomware, encrypting ransomware. There's ransomware as a service now. A number of years ago, a 10-year-old student in a public school down South Jersey was in trouble because somebody posted something on his Facebook that was a nasty thing to say. And the police came. And it turns out that somebody had used a tool they purchased on Discord, 10-year-old, installed it, captured his credentials, and then logged into Facebook to get him into trouble. Now, these little kids have no clue what's right and wrong, right? But they're buying for $20 on Discord tools that they then install. They think they can launch a ransomware attack on their school. They have no idea what they've opened up on their back door on their network, right? So there's an education process here that we're going through. Generations don't even understand what's going on with the kids. Now, this whole new generation of kids coming up, they're opening up back doors on your home network so their father could work for IBM or mother might work for AT&T or a telecoms network. And these guys, through a $20 kid buying their package, have just opened up their home network to all the bad guys. So, where are we? Strategic resilience, right? We're talking about the questions to ask and the things we need to do. So, educate users. Can't stress enough how important backups are across the piece, whether it's database backups, server backups, email backups. Having that data to restore when you need it is what it boils down to it. you know, that's kind of your last stop, right? Where you need to do a full restoration. Most of the time with Sentinel-1, we can capture midstream. We can roll back in time if something happened. We can do that without having to touch anything. We can isolate and segregate on the networks. With Perch, we have that visibility from a SIM solution. We can see it in the cloud, we can see it on-prem, and we have one SOC and an AI governing it all, monitoring the same data. So we're capturing that endpoint detect, that XDR information, the SIM log data, and we're able to do forensics analysis. We're able to do zero-day catching, but also we can take a look and see down the road what the behavior patterns were, why this got in, how this got in. Vulnerability scans, pen testing, so important, right? You got to know where your weaknesses are, right? We all have houses. You know, we know whether we have deadbolts or not. We know whether we have cameras and bars on our windows or not. We know what the safety is like in our neighborhood. If we choose to do nothing about it, well, that's on us, right? In the case of most of our networks, we're not always sure what our vulnerabilities are. We're not always sure how that IT spread is impacted, what doors have been opened, what's on the cloud, who forgot to do a password, or who did password 123, right? Or something worse. So, and that brings us to strong passwords, no passwords, best practices, 2FA, all the fundamental stuff, you know, what I call fundamental baseball. It's really, you got to do the basic stuff. You got to be down with that and move in that direction, and that gives you a baseline from which to improve, and really that's where you evolve from. Advanced security monitoring, you know, I can't stress enough how important a SOC is, if you can afford it. Most people who have these tools in place, if they have an incident, they don't have the skill set to fix it. They don't have the skill set to remediate. Then they're out, you know, speaking to somebody, can you help us remediate? Well, do you have any documentation? Do you have cyber insurance? Right? Because these are things that in the SMB space, we're finding that cyber insurance is a real good piece as long as it's good insurance, right? I've seen it both ways. We've done remediations with and without the cyber insurance. We can be much faster on the remediation side without cyber insurance involved, but there's no way of recouping anything if you don't have it. So it's a total loss at that point. Multi-factor authentication, policies of planning and data governance. Right, this is a huge one. You got to write it down. We got to document it. IT folks are not the best at documenting environments, and it's just going to increase the cost of a remediation if you don't do it. We had to fully document an environment during a remediation, and it's not fun. And then, you know, they're looking at blaming you when a firewall crashes over here because we did a firmware update on it, and it needed to be updated, but these are the things that happen when there's no documentation, there's no structure, they don't know what kind of VPN, how it's set up, how they're communicating. So it can add a lot of complexity when people are already stressed out enough. And then people love to point fingers because no one wants to be to blame when there's a remediation going. So the questions to ask: if ransomware strikes your network, what is your first course of action? What's your communication strategy, right? Who do you tell, what do you say? That's fundamental. That should be part of your policy. Are you prompted and notified if an intrusion occurs after hours or at any point in time? How good is the notification? How rapid is it? What are your SLAs? You want to understand these things. What types of security software are you running and on which devices? You know, all of this, you want to be asking yourself, how often are you maintaining security software and updating it to the latest version? Do employees have access to things that they don't need access to? Back to the data governance side, right? So you limit the access. Are applications requiring ports to be opened? Understand and close down all the ones that you don't need opened, right? This is a very expensive process, and not everybody can afford to do this. But we did this with Louis Vuitton, and we did this for one application, and it was the most tedious, annoying thing I've ever done in my entire life. But it had every port, every application, every flow in or out, and everything else got shut down. And you know, and there was a reason why they were doing it, right? So that's learned behavior. right? The more we get to that mindset, they hired somebody from Microsoft to help in that process. The more they get into that mindset, the more completely we're going to be able to understand and protect the networks. How much do your employees know about ransomware? How well are they educated in cybersecurity? We use Ninja within Sharp internally. We sell KnowBe4. We sell WebRoot. We sell a number of other solutions, including Barracuda. And they're all good, and for the right circumstances, they're the right solution, right? Depending on what your needs are, what your budgets are, and what you're looking to accomplish. So, but you have to understand and take that first step and say, well, what are we looking to accomplish? What do we need to do? How do we educate our people? And what are the biggest problems? And until you actually do those fishing expeditions, you're not necessarily sure who needs what training. And you might have a good feel for it from the day-to-day. Now, the other thing that we do is, this right side is really a verbal assessment or a documented assessment. And this is about everything that we cover and protect with our services, from security assessments and anti-spam, password managers and security awareness training, MFA, dark web, SIM, web gateway, mobile device management, firewalls, encryption. So, our sweet spot is the medium-sized enterprise, but we do have large customers out there. But for the most part, our portfolio is a little broader. So where we need to, we partner with specialized security partners, where we need the support and that level of service. But basically, we focus on the mid-size enterprise, but we do have customers out there like West Point, where we are managing cybersecurity for a part of their network. So we do have some large ones, we do have medium-sized, and some small ones too. And the nice thing about us is, even if you're a small company, you're getting that same level of service and attention and the same products and the same monitoring as the big guys do. So it's enterprise level. The employee training, education, the social engineering red flags, this is really what it's all about. Hearing that Adobe Sign or DocuSign is sending out, it's been hacked, right? Getting those updates on day-to-day changes to the environment, because you see a lot of those fake DocuSigns out there, still an issue. And just letting people know, even customers, but also making sure that our employees know and making sure our customers understand the things to look for, the red flags, and to use your brain, because these red flags are going to get less and less the more AI gets involved. Establish your standards. Are you doing a BYO? Are you doing company-provided equipment? You want to set standards. You want to set patching and updates. You want to understand what you're letting onto your network, but you also want to make sure that all those devices have the same tools, have the tools that you've approved, and that function the way you need them to, and that they're getting patched. Right? That's where that automation comes in. Automate, automate, automate. Because the more we rely on people, most of us, teams that we have, they're overworked, right? We've streamlined and cut back. And now we have people in process that doesn't allow our people to take the 5 minutes and sharpen their axe, right? There was a great story about two lumberjack friends. And he made a bet about who can cut more wood, right? And the one guy was chopping wood 8 hours straight, didn't stop, didn't take a break, didn't eat. The other guy was stopping every hour for 10 minutes, taking a break, and by the end of the day, the other guy cut more wood. He's like, how'd you do it? It's like that 10 minutes I was taking off, I was sharpening my axe. And that's what we need our IT guys to do. We need them to have time to sharpen their axe. Because what happens when we throw them in this environment, add more to them, they've got a lot of balls in the air already. Right? What happens when you have too many balls in the air? Now you're going to get taken advantage of by the bad guys. Right? So these are the standards that we want to establish, but we want to support our personnel so that they can make sure that they're following up on these standards. Encryption, endpoint protection, right? VPN technology, I can't tell you how many different VPNs have been breached over the last 2 years. Some of the remediations we've done have been as a result of that, right? We deploy these VPNs for secure communication, and what happens, there's a back door, there's ways of kicking up the rights of the users. So, you can create admins on the fly if you breach this. So these are all things that we need to be prepared for, and we need to have, if this happens, then what, right? Because the less time that we have to think about it, the faster we can remediate and address it. So if we don't plan to fail, we fail to plan, right? So credentials, passwords, adopting a tight, strong password, whether it's passphrase, whether it's the new technology, everything should be multi-factor at this point. You should have a good offboarding process, ensure credentials don't get stale, right? You should be doing dark web searches and making sure if there are credentials that have been breached out there, they've been updated, and you're doing that periodically. Access backup, data governance fall into this. Automated cloud backup, email backup, you want to do permission alerts, anything that kicks up to admin automatically. You want to do quarantine, recovery, continuity, and again, data governance is key. You don't want somebody who has access to a bunch of data, they get hacked, they shouldn't have access to it, but that provides the ransomware agent a way to encrypt that data. So by doing the data governance, and again, it's more money, this is an investment in technology, right? And this is something that we need to get out of the old mindset, because the old mindset is what put us in this situation to a large degree. We need to move forward with a little bit more investment, a little bit more collaboration, and just being fundamentally smarter about what we do and how we treat our resources that are protecting us. And then we've got zero trust, ZTNS, ZTNA. There's all different types of technology. Not all of them define zero trust networks the same way. But you've got the likes of Zscaler out there, you've got the likes of Barracuda out there, and everything in between. So these are areas that the CISO environment, they're really pushing everyone to go zero trust, and it is a good target. It is a complex conversation, and complexity doesn't always help us with security. Sometimes it makes it a little bit more cumbersome. Sometimes you have organizations that think they're mature, technologically speaking, but all they've done is they've added a bunch of systems that have actually complicated the environment, right? So I can only speak for Sharp when I say we have a tendency to do that. And again, we have teams and teams of people who are securing that environment, we have partnerships, but we need to be smart about the applications and the spread of technology and how we secure those environments, because fundamentally it makes everybody's life much better. And then finally, in the finance industry and tax industry, accountants all require third-party audits. Why not IT, right? Some organizations do, mostly in the banking, sometimes in the healthcare industry, but everybody should be in the business of doing assessments, whether they be vulnerability scans, pen testing, and really creating a technology roadmap and a security roadmap based on those results. And then going back periodically, just like we test our backups all the time, right? We're all testing our backups. We want to be doing this process as well, because it's going to secure us, right? These are all about best practices, and when we know where we're weak. But it's a gradual process, and we will evolve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Very inspiring. I'll invite you, William, please.
Good morning, bom dia. It's almost as if I paid him how he started off, because I'm going to get a lot more granular in what I talk about. One of the main points, I guess I should get into myself first, not the greatest part about it, but we're talking cyber resilience. So I found the movie title, a Brazilian movie called Inimigo Interno, and it reminded me of what he said. A lot of the major threats, there's plenty of people attacking from the outside all the time, but your employees, your contractors, they're some of the worst. Interns, people in summer programs, training programs, etc. So I'm gonna get a lot more detailed. Let me use this. This is myself. I had a lot more hair back then. I founded Aono Corp years ago. Mostly I've worked with GSIB level banks, defense contractors. I've done some healthcare. I try to avoid healthcare because they're a lot messier than everyone else. But what I'd like to speak to today is from the perspective of data governance and asset management. When I discuss asset management, that includes your servers, storage, network infrastructure. It also includes your laptops and desktops. So my breakdown today from the data governance perspective is going to be from the infrastructure side and your server side. The asset management I'll speak to strictly personal compute devices, laptops, desktops, things like that.
It's not going.
No. Oh, now it did. Okay. Just giving an example of how it applies to cyber resilience. So there's a lot of great work done. I looked up a lot of the panel. I knew they were going to have very extensive presentations from all aspects of cybersecurity, all aspects of threat. I do have a background in threat management, also in identity and access management, which includes when you join a company, when you're transferring within a company, and when there's terminations, all of your access, how it gets provisioned, deprovisioned, etc. A lot further into that is the data itself. You're only as good as your data. And as he mentioned before, IT professionals, very intelligent, they can do it all. The more commas after the name, the more cocky they are. But they're usually getting hacked by a 13-year-old in China or Ukraine on a 30-year-old machine. So a lot of times when people say, well, we haven't had an incident in XYZ amount of time, then that means you haven't detected it. And more often than not, when you do detect it, okay, who do we run to? How do we run to do the patching that we need to do? Who do we run to remediate as fast as possible to reduce the impact to the organization? Well, we look in our configuration management databases. We look in whatever data repositories we have it. Oh, it turns out this information hasn't been updated in 4 years. Or we acquired a company, that equipment is under that company. We have no idea who these people are. Moving on, so from the data governance, as I mentioned, I'm going to speak from the server storage side, network infrastructure, etc. There's so much that I was going to talk about, but he covered just in his last presentation, so it saves me a lot of time. So thank you. So from here, I'm going to discuss from the inaccurate and inconsistent data, lack of accountability and ownership, the data silos and fragmentation that happens throughout organizations, especially very large ones, operational efficiencies that can be caused, and then a couple of tips for success. So moving on, I have to get a little closer. So without the proper oversight, data can become fragmented, outdated, duplicated, making it unreliable, as I mentioned earlier, for threat response. I included and started off here just a couple ways you can shore up your data. So as you mentioned, improve your policies, improve your procedures. Standardization is a must. We have companies that, most of my background is in project management. I worked in one organization that had 27 project management tools. Why? There's no reason. There's a lot of carte blanche offered to people. And that's just on the PM side. When you discuss engineers, engineers are sort of, if you've ever been to a rock concert and you had backstage passes, you have your lanyards, a lot of the guys collect as many lanyards, it's almost like a badge that they wear. They walk around like a general that just won a war. It happens here as well when you give someone a company credit card. They just buy whatever tooling they want. They know a guy in a department that'll let them circumvent the process so they can use a tool that they prefer, and it creates a lot more complexity. So some of the stuff here, like I said, mentioned with standardization, try to reduce your amount of tooling where possible. It's not always possible, it's just so small you can get, but you can clean up as much as possible. From that point, the next thing is to work on data cleanup. These are very ugly projects, plain and simple, because it requires the things that people don't want to do, things that AI can't do, automation can't do, because you're only as good as your data. You have to have boots on the ground, people showing up, having very long, tedious meetings, going through application by application, server by server, environment to environment, to discuss, oh, does Bob Jones still own this? Does Susie Johnson still own this? Turns out they're not even with the company anymore. A lot of times, some of us might be a new hire in an organization, and you step in and you're doing your job, everything's going great, and 1 year later there's a data cleanup project, and a whole team comes and asks you, hey, by the way, you own these 17 servers. You had no idea. But when you signed up for the job, whatever was owned by the employee who last held that role, that became yours. Nobody let you know. So there's a lot of that as well. As you mentioned earlier, automating. Automating is very, very important with a lot of data analytics. You can scan environments, you can grab that data, and then work with some hopefully very smart people to try to figure out some patterns and decide, okay, well, these servers start with this prefix. Generally speaking, this subdivision has that, etc. And then try to break it down, reach out to those people, and hope you get a hit. But when you have an organization with 50,000 servers, 250,000 employees, it can be very cumbersome and very difficult. He mentioned before, nobody wants to take ownership. It's the bottom line. Not only during an incident, but a lot of times people say, I don't own this stuff, it's not mine. And sometimes they're right. Other times they've owned it for years and there's not much of a mea culpa from them. It's just, okay, what do we do now? Sometimes they're kind of giving an attitude about it because like you said, not any discredit to people, but more and more in this line of work, people are given a lot more responsibility for not much difference in pay. Years ago when I came into technology, I started as a web designer. I did some graphic design. I had a team that handled building similar programming in the back end, animation. Now, a lot of people have to wear all of those hats for the same price, or barely an increase. So people are busy. They're working a lot more. Brazilians in the room, I did projects with Brazilian companies. 2-hour meetings, usually 1 hour of how was your weekend, what restaurant you went to, and then get to work. Americans, we, especially here in New York, I think that we work more and spend more time in front of the computers than anyone else in the world. That's just my opinion. And some people might say China and Japan, but I see it here in New York. Our lives are work, 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 and maybe squeeze in some time, which is probably why when you go to the bars after work, you see people there a lot longer than they should be too. So going back, we were talking about the data silos. When you have multiple data repositories and multiple discovery tools that are scanning your networks, sometimes they're not talking to each other. Sometimes the teams that own that data are not talking to each other. So I have this one repository here, and it says, you own XYZ data. The other team has a repository that says, you own XYZ data. And independently, you're reaching out to these people. Turns out it's none of them. Or, on the other side of the coin, you'll have one person who is the owner, but there's 5 different teams using 5 different tools. They all contact this person, and now they're angry. I just provided that information to Dave. This person updated the information, put it into the system to get it updated so that we can clean this up, and now it turns out there's some tool out there that's overriding the data because your logic that was built is not accounting for that. So some of the operational efficiencies goes without saying, as I mentioned earlier. A poorly designed data repository logic can overwrite data, can overwrite a lot of good work. We had a project last year where there was a team that lost, I think it was 6 people, about 8 hours each. They put in a lot of work, and another team did a refresh on the data. We had too many people inside of one tool and just destroyed about 2 weeks worth of work that they spent updating manually. And when I speak about manually, a lot of times this work, you can automate where you can, but sometimes it's literally filling up an Excel document with tons of columns of all the data related, and then having someone on your configuration management databases, etc., updating that data, and one at a time or in bulk. The projects, as we mentioned, a lot, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes inadvertently contacting the same people over again, it creates a lot of frustration. It makes our teams look like we don't know what we're doing, and then that takes away. The next time you reach out to that same person, they may be less willing to help you because they feel like the work is going nowhere. The application owner frustration, as I mentioned, and then on top of that, all of the people doing the good work, the employees, the contractors, they get burnt out. When you're sitting in a project that they said would take, 2 weeks to slow the curve, you come here and now 2 years later you have a project and you're still being reached out to for stuff that you swore you finished a year ago, a year and a half ago. They're already tired from their job. Now they're burned out from these projects, and now the needle is not moving. So it becomes a lot more painful for them as well. Some of the tips for success. Take lessons learned from the data cleanup projects that you put together. Work with legal and compliance to hone your data governance policies and procedures. In cybersecurity, we have something called CIA, the CIA triad. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Pay a lot of attention to the integrity of your data, not only on the side from the technical perspective as that data is in transit, but also your actual data and your data repositories. Ensure proper cross-business unit and departmental data sharing. This, as I mentioned before, it creates a lot of redundancy. If your organization acquired a few companies, it takes time. M&A activity is lengthy, not only from the financial side and the legal side, from the compliance side, but also you have multiple systems doing the same things, and now you have to consolidate them and put it together. A lot of times it takes years before people pay attention to those things. And of course, as I said, none of the above is possible without accurate data ownership information. This is a lot scarier than people think in their organizations. Moving on from the asset management side, this is your personal compute devices, company-issued devices, BYOD from your cell phones, your laptops that you bring that you are allowed access to the networks. How do we manage that? How do we work with those devices? How do we understand who owns it? I've seen things in organizations where they have an internship program. They issue 75 devices to everyone out there, and everyone did their job. They went through the internship, the students were happy, they returned their devices. A few years later, we do discovery and find there's 10,000 devices that we haven't seen on the network in 2 months. And it turns out those 75 machines are nowhere to be found. Because a lot of times people will return stuff. They don't create a ticket. They don't ensure and follow through end to end. They just assume I hand it to a technician, they do their job, they put it back where it belongs, put it back in stock, do the data wipes, do the cleanups, do the re-imaging, and a lot of times these steps don't happen. So the same topics, even though data governance, asset management, two separate topics, it's the same path. The inaccuracy, the inconsistency, lack of accountability, etc., etc. So the data breaches, when they occur, when you have unmanaged devices, as I mentioned earlier, you can suffer from compliance violations. There's environmental hazards if you're not breaking down your devices, setting them to proper places to get destroyed, if they're sitting around doing nothing. I spent years in the scrap industry selling plastic scrap to China, and e-scrap was one of the specialities. We have a process for breaking down the housing, selling that as plastic scrap, breaking down each individual unit from motherboards, all the parts of a monitor, etc. There's companies that are set up to do that. Not everyone knows that they're supposed to handle it the right way. A lot of times stuff is sitting in a warehouse for a long period of time, collecting dust, creating cost. Here I gave a couple of asset dispositions that pose a threat to an organization. So missing lost devices, this goes without saying. How many times, if anyone, unfortunately I'm going to single out San Francisco. There's people in San Francisco that live there or that work there that know if you park in certain places in San Francisco, leave your trunk open, leave your doors unlocked, leave it completely empty because people break into your windows and get in. If someone's new there, if they're going to a conference or if they're on a work trip, sometimes they'll leave their stuff in their trunk just to get a quick cup of coffee. They come back, smashed in windows, cars ransacked, laptops gone. Your average person there is probably not a bad actor. They just want to try to sell the laptop and make some money. But a lot of times there's better actors out there that can get hold of that device. Can they do anything with it? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But you have other people that it's a lengthy process, they're getting more complex, they're getting smarter. So you might have somebody that gets access to a bunch of devices and then social engineers their way into a company. They can pretend to be there for something else. Now they can plug that into your environment, and if the right security isn't in place, they might gain access to your network, for example. Duplicate entries for the same device. A lot of times, both of you might show up in the system owning the same exact laptop. That creates a lot of confusion as well. If something happened with that laptop, let's say you have a forensics case and legal needs to grab a unit, who do we come after? Who do we look for? Classified devices. There are very stringent guidelines with classified devices, whether you're a financial institution, government entity, etc. We have found at times that classified devices have appeared in unclassified discovery. That should not be occurring at all. They should be completely independent where you can't see each other. There should be that kind of lack of visibility, and oftentimes it's not the case. So it may be a false positive. Maybe this classified device that shows an unclassed area is actually unclassified. But it's a very bad look when that happens, and when you have auditors coming, we have regulators coming, we have some compliance laws you have to adhere to. Europe, I believe they have a Cyberresilience Act that they put together as well. And part of this is, part of these things that I'm discussing throughout the deck are related to what can help you clean up your organization. The last, unaccounted for devices that are reported as returned in the past. As I mentioned, you have an internship event. You have a nice training program. You decide to give back to a community and say, there's people that are underprivileged, but they're very smart. We see an opportunity that they could be great as cybersecurity professionals, working in finance, etc. You put them together, you do these trainings, and again, they're all doing their jobs, but a lot of people are just not following through on the other end. Even if they follow through, they might not update. Oh, hey, I noticed that it says this name, but the person returning it is that name. Asking simple questions. Are you the owner of this device that you're returning, or are you returning on behalf of somebody else? These small things, if it becomes part of what you do every day, it becomes part of your process, it can help in ways where everybody's working together to update without even knowing that they're helping the overall cause. We can speak to this ad nauseum, the lack of accountability. I mean, just everyone hears about this, they get called, they don't want it, they already have enough things on their plate. I've spoken about this already, we can move on. I just wanted to give some examples of what could cause and what scenarios could cause ownership issues. So, employee lifecycle changes. I'm a contractor, they love my work, they decide to hire me as an employee. There's some changes in HR systems, maybe, and that then trickles down into some of your identity systems as well. Maybe the updates didn't happen properly. Or you had a long-term leave, you had an illness, you were pregnant, etc. Some of this information may become stale by the time you come back. You leave an organization, you come back later, but it was past the threshold where your account goes from disabled to completely deleted, and they don't find your old account to reassociate with you. They create a new one, and now there's multiple profiles of yourself within your systems. Organizational changes, as I mentioned, mergers and acquisitions, reorgs, etc. I mentioned already internship programs, trainings, etc. And the other part is that a lot of organizations, they want to keep you with the best technology. So they have refresh processes. And that's where they determine, I'll make up, every 3 years, they're going to update your device to a new device. During that transition, a multitude of things happen. There's not a good transfer of data to the new device. Or, these days, a lot of people are working from home ever since COVID. Not to show off, I've been lucky enough to be working from home a lot longer than that, and I would like not to return to an office, but the people that I work with that work from home, you ship them a laptop, they're supposed to do the data transfers, work with the IT techs, and a lot of times 8 months pass, 1 year pass, they're sitting on this machine the whole time. They didn't fulfill their refresh. Our systems indicate that they're on a new device, but they're still working off the old device. That can cause some issues in and of itself. Now when they're ready to do something, turns out I have to call help desk because the machine was locked, because they want to prevent any incidents. And now they say, I'll leave it alone a while longer. Now your machine goes bad, not usable anymore, you're not productive, you can't work. So a lot of these things happen on a regular basis. And it's perfect timing as emergencies happen. Back to the data silos and fragmentation. I discussed that already. I would just like to give some examples of what can cause some of this. So you might have systems that are responsible strictly for your domestic product. We have systems that are only looking at US-based tools. But maybe you have a presence in Germany where they have a lot more stringent guidelines. Europe as a whole, they do. You'll have a separate system monitoring that. China, oftentimes on the infrastructure side, one of my clients in the data centers, they had all of the server racks for everything that they had, but there was a separate section on a separate network strictly for things that were in China. These systems are likely not talking to each other. You don't have a way to compare the data to see if there's something useful to protect you either from a threat or just from a data cleanup perspective. Classified versus unclassified, as I mentioned. Lot less likely, but as mentioned, on-site versus remote devices. Some of the scenarios like the one I presented before, but there are other relevant scenarios that can come to mind. And then help desk offices versus your IT asset disposition facilities. So those kind of facilities are where your laptop goes, where it's supposed to go after you return it. It goes to these places. They either send it to destruction facilities, or they will wipe the machine, zero it out, and then re-image the machine so that they can, reissue it to somebody else in your company. A lot of times these places are stacked, hundreds, thousands of assets because they're understaffed, they're overwhelmed. They have just so many systems they can plug in. There's a certain amount of time it takes to handle these machines. And a lot of times those systems are completely independent of the systems within your network. So you can't even scan that. You need to receive feeds either through an API or by as I mentioned before, an Excel document. And it's unfortunately, it's a lot of the ways people working off of, where you have tens of thousands of rows of data, God knows how many columns across, and now we have to rely on ourselves to find the patterns and figure things out. The operational efficiencies, some of them are self-explanatory, some of them are repetitive, as discussed in data governance. But how can the improper asset management affect your business and your BAU activity, which is business as usual, which means your day-to-day outside of project-based. So new equipment is ordered, the existing equipment can't be found, or as I mentioned, a person is holding on to more than one device. We see them on one, and they were supposed to be transferred to another. This increased costs. Sometimes we think an equipment is not out there. Sometimes a person doesn't realize they're holding on to something, and a company just doesn't even speak to them, and they say, let's just issue them another device. That comes at a cost. Now there's more risk because now they have 2 devices, 3 devices. Maybe they start piling up because they were supposed to do something on behalf of someone else. They have 7 machines in their house and that are owned by multiple people that somebody assumed they took care of, and they did not. So the device is assigned to the wrong person, as I mentioned. Sometimes we have the wrong person there. Now we need to come look for somebody. Or there's a department that they have a critical tool, not recommended, but sometimes people use their personal compute devices to install an application that does one specific job. There may be only 2-3 users on it. You may have a shared device as well. On a shared device, do you have a proper system in place with check-in, check-out to see who was the last user? Can you determine the difference between last user logged in, that's actually the person doing the work, or is it someone doing updates on the system remotely, maybe an administrator? Can you tell the difference? A lot of times it's not the case. Inaccessible equipment, this is equipment that you think is out there, you need to find, someone needs to get work done on it. The system is locked, as I mentioned earlier. Now you can't do your job. Now you have to take time to unlock machines or figure out where it is so that the person can go there and get their job done as well. As you can see, even though I kept a lot of the subtitles there and the subjects similar between data governance and asset management, because there's a lot of repetition, there's a lot of crossover. Excuse me. Lastly, asset management cleanup programs. They just take a lot of hours, a lot of person hours. So this not only comes at a cost of their productivity and their day-to-day jobs, you have to bring in outsiders, the people who have the time to do it, that might have the expertise, that have done this for other organizations. It's costly. If you have a big 4 in there, if you have a KPMG, if you have an EY, if some of you knew those rates, I know we have some MD level people here, if they know they're looking at one, and if you see the rates of some of these people and what these programs cost, a lot of times they cost a lot more than your asset inventory as a whole, just to clean up what people could have been doing as their everyday job. Some of the tips for success. You hit it right on the head earlier. Senior leadership, they're often overconfident in these programs. They think we're doing great. If they don't hear about it, they don't know about it, it's the kind of deal. They underestimate the ramifications of poor data management and poor asset management governance. So, what should we focus on when attempting to improve an asset management program? Define your discovery triggers, your communication plan, to your core teams and targeted device owners. Outline a process for the disposition updates. The disposition, as I mentioned earlier, is it missing, lost? Was it returned in the past? Has the person never owned the device? Does it exist in one of your classified areas? What do you do when you find out? How do we handle each one? How do we create a program around it? Create those strategies for dealing with miscategorized devices, duplicate device names, devices owned by people on a long-term leave. Build strategic training guides and knowledge articles to educate people. There's a lot of times training guides are either extremely stale, old information, old processes, before a merger, before a reorg, or a lot of times they're very cumbersome, and we live in the cell phone age. If we don't see something in 3 seconds, our brain just shuts off. We just disappear. And sometimes these guides are very, very difficult. They're hard to read. They're written by technicians for average end users who may not have the same capabilities and expertise that they do. So keep that in mind when you're building these things. Include screenshots, get very specific. Create a refresh program to get those updates happening, maybe on a cycle. In identity and access management, we have recertification events. So I'm a manager, I have 15 people under me. Every year, it sends me a list of 15 people, all the entitlements that they have access to from every application. Do they still need this level of access? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Go through those exercises. Also train managers not to rubber stamp. A lot of times if you have a large team under you, they're just like, as you mentioned, okay. They just assume everything is good because there's not a problem. What did I do? I just gave somebody access that could set up wire transfers, and now we didn't realize he's in a new job where he can send wire transfers. Now he has access to both. Unrelated to this, but just related to cybersecurity as a whole. So build those training guides, build those knowledge articles, partner with those companies that create programs if it's in your budget, where from the phishing attack side, there's also the training where there's actual training videos to walk people through all of these steps. How to be a good corporate citizen, clean up your data, return assets the right way, etc., etc. So building these things, and then the last part, as he mentioned earlier, develop automation to shorten the response times for these remediation efforts. A lot of times, as I mentioned, working from those Excel documents, once you establish a pattern, once you understand things, how can we get that data to go live right away to clean up your systems? Figure out where you can make that happen with some of the tooling that you have in place, with some of the data scientists that you have in place as well. A lot more cumbersome because, again, you're only as good as your data, but the better you get at the cleanup, the easier it gets to automate, and then long-term you can build systems in place that, for example, a pop-up will appear on your screen while you're working to check, are you William Carabaño? Yes, I am. That confirms that's the user. Are you the owner of the device you're on right now? No, I'm an administrator doing an update right now. I'm doing some patching. Or yes, I am the user of this device. Where are you located? Some of these things can be built in as a quick pop-up, barely a distraction, might take a few seconds to fill out, clean up your systems. Moving on, just in closing, there was so much you covered, which was so great for me. A lot better. I did want to tackle this. I knew that we had a very capable panel that was going to speak to every aspect of cybersecurity, a lot of the tooling and everything that was in place. I wanted to get a lot more granular in the enemy within your own gates. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Thank you. Now I would like to start with some questions, and then if we still have time, we can open to some questions to the audience. So I want to direct this question to Marciano. So we often hear resilience begins with getting the basics well done. We discussed that a lot. We heard about some different aspects of what this represents. What does that mean in practice today? And how can leaders ensure those fundamentals are consistently in place?
Oh.
It's a point.
Yeah, good question. Yeah. Well, I think we have two perspectives from this question. In my vision, the first one is the businessmen can understand more and more about the cybersecurity. Of course, they not will be specialists, but they can understand what the cybersecurity can do in your business, and the business can drive the cybersecurity in your business too. For example, the business guys can effort to the cybersecurity, what application they can be secure, what the user is most important, or something like that. It's the business and the cybersecurity can be aligned to make a sure cybersecurity to the company. By the other hand, in the technical vision, the cybersecurity information security officer can know what is the priority of investments in the business. It's not make a sense they have one, for example, one technology to monitoring bilateral communication in the network and don't have one email protection. It's not the basic doing well. We need to pick the basic, and after we can do the other things. I think that's my vision.
Okay.
If the guys can contribute, please.
Anyone would like to contribute in that? No? Yeah? We are good, so I'll direct the next one to you, Rafael. So, financial institutions have long been amongst the most advanced investors in cybersecurity and privacy. Given the sensitivity of customer data and the systemic risk of disruption, How are boards and CFOs integrating these investments into enterprise risk management? And what lessons can the other sectors learn from the financial industry's approach?
Big challenge, right? So I think some of the things that were covered on the presentations are resonate with me a lot. In the sense that there's every investment material, there's always a disclaimer saying that past performance doesn't represent future returns. Cybersecurity should have the same, right? Because just because things are working doesn't mean that they will continue to work exactly the same way or better. So that, I think, it's a strong message that I try to convey with all senior leadership or all executives that are influencing decisions on cybersecurity. Yes, everything that we covered here around doing the basics well, about the policies, procedures, doing the housekeeping in the right way. They are very important on an ongoing day to day, but we also discuss on how those things are very important on recovery. I think that's not every organization can work 100% automated or system driven. The individual, the people component, in a way that they are the greatest risk in some situations, some scenarios. They can be a great asset to help recovery as well. I think that when you see disruptions that impact people, it's also very challenging. You have a hurricane or something that you need to move people from one side to the other. You may not have all the individuals that you were hoping to have to follow the procedures that you described and retrain them for. So there's a lot of, as I mentioned, creative on-the-spot thinking or designing, adjusting the how you're going to recover the environment. It's not only following a certain procedure, because not every situation, not every disruption follows the script that we once imagined, right? So there's a lot of nuances and challenges, and I think for decision makers, in one hand they are looking for certainty, they are looking for assurance, they are looking for someone that they can rely on to say, yes, we're good, yes, we're going to recover, yes, there's not going to be an issue. I think for most of us, transparency, clarity on what we know and what we don't know, it's very important to help to adjust that expectation. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done on knowing and understanding, which is tied back to the documentation that we discussed, but also in terms of making sure that you have that understanding of the threat landscape, the capabilities, the tools, the resources to be able to react, if and when one of those massive disruption occurs.
Thank you. Okay, building up on your answer, and it could be directed to Ili, William, and Brian, please feel free, or anyone in the panel. Emerging technologies such as AI that we are discussing a lot, and I like your AI-enabled threats right now in your slide. So AI, cloud, blockchain can transform operations and create competitive advantage, but also they expand the attack surface. How can organizations balance innovation with governance, ensuring new tools are deployed securely and responsibly?
I don't mind taking this one. Sure. My current client, they were wrestling with adding AI capabilities, just on a basic level, just because of sensitivity of data, a lot of government contracts, things like that. So it goes back to what I discussed before, having those processes in place, having that training up front. There's a joke amongst, I'm half Colombian and amongst our people, if your kid goes to put fork in the outlet, they say, let him figure it out. Don't tell him beforehand. That doesn't work in what we do. It doesn't also work with the child. So if you have that as part of your training up front, the younger generation, they're more tech savvy. They're also a lot more lax in what they do as well. Little do they know that their parents, their uncles, everyone else that works in this, they're also very lax because they're overconfident in their knowledge. They've read every single literature and documentation, but they still have bad practices. So it really starts from the beginning. And if you want to implement these tools, understand the risks, And then what do you do to mitigate it? You can put all the tooling in place, like we said, but until your people, as he mentioned, is people, process, technology, great. But your people all day. That education and training, making it easy to digest. To me, that's the most important way. You can't be 100% clean from risk. It's impossible because we're humans and we're likely to slip. You might be great 364 days of the year. Maybe you went to too many parties one weekend. Your brain is not as sharp as it was. You got 3 hours sleep. You're not 20 anymore. It can affect what you do. And so the more that you can ingrain it where it becomes part of like an unconscious movements that people do, unconscious cleanup that they do, just following the path that they're supposed to be as good as possible. That's the only way. Otherwise, you leave yourself vulnerable.
Okay, thank you. Brian wants to build on it?
Just want to add, humility, I think, is such an important quality that I think the older I get, the longer I'm in IT, the more humble I am, and I'm pretty sure I don't have dignity left anymore. But it is AI has to be a part of the answer, right? Unfortunately, AI is a part of the problem, and it's also going to help us to get in front of it, right? So we have to use it as a tool, and again, like you said, AI is only as good as our data and our policies are that it's using to learn. And anything people are programming is going to be riddled with bugs. Anything people are teaching is going to carry the good and the bad and the ugly of their instructor, right? Just like all of us coming out of school. So we have to approach it carefully and cautiously, and then we have to look at the financial industry where they can't sit back and say, yeah, we're the pinnacle. There's a lot of humility that comes out of that, but there's a lot of leadership that the industries can look to across the piece, maybe not within the US government per se, but other industries that have been very successful with cybersecurity, hopefully the US government can learn some things from them, because for how long did we think, oh, the network's inside is secure? You're making assumptions, and I think the more we just step back and realize that we're not as advanced as we think we are. A little humility and approaching it with that appreciation for what the youth bring to the table, but also what we can learn from those who have really established the best of the best in the space. I think it's a combination of things, and AI can help with that challenge too, I think.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So my next question could be answered by anyone in the panel. So when the resources are constrained, how should leaders balance cost efficiency with the strategic need for resilience? How do cyber, finance, technology leaders like you guys collaborate to make those trade-offs?
What is resource constraint?
Never.
The age of AI, just get a few agents and sort it out. So, I think just to add a comment on that, because I think that's, I was reading an article the other day about how some of those capabilities are enabling teams to achieve higher performance. But some of the things that you guys mentioned on the slides as well around burnout are very true, and a reality that a lot of the technology organizations are experiencing. That increased productivity is coming at a cost, and not everything that's called AI or labeled as AI is real AI. And I think that's just like any other buzzword. There's some good in it, there's some potential in it, but there's some a lot of things that are being packaged as such and sold as such that not necessarily are producing the performance that we expect, right? So I think we need to be very attentive to that aspect, because the examples that we talked about on the 10-year-old kid getting something to do it for the school, this is widely available. This is becoming cheaper. This is becoming reality. Although most organizations, all the organizations have some challenges in exposing their own weaknesses, telling that they were breached, they had issues, or whatever disruption they were suffering. So the information is not so much public and available on that. So it's hard for us to have a sense of how much of that is actually already going on, in the industry with all of us in our personal lives. How many of the companies that we do business, either on a personal or professional level, have been breached, have our data, have things that have leaked. So that understanding of what's the landscape and how easy it is to exploit some of those weaknesses, I think not every person has that, and that's kind of where I would start. When we talk about AI and things along those lines, it's we need to have a much better understanding of where we are, and to find the solutions on addressing that.
Thank you.
I just want to add quickly, another frustration that people have is we have, as they joked about, the resource constraints. A lot of times financial institutions, different entities, they post right on the home pages and the intranets, X amount of billion-dollar deal closed, X amount of this, X amount of that, and a lot of organizations suffer from the penny rich, dollar poor. So these constraints are sometimes unnecessary, and they don't tackle it until it becomes super costly. Making people, people are burnt out, and then they find out that this huge deal was closed. Now it lowers morale, because they say they couldn't give us a few more bodies, or when I had my raise this year, it was only this much versus this much with everything that we did, or we did all of this work and now they got rid of the entire department because the work actually did help the organization. It showed there was a lot of redundancy, etc., and unfortunately cost people their jobs. From the other side, just one last comment is that on the positive note, you shouldn't make your, let's say, technology departments fearful, where sometimes I've been in organizations where we rewrote policy which would put them out of compliance, and it scared them because they thought it's going to be a poor reflection on them. And we had to explain, if you're out of policy, if there's an audit, anything like that, if you're out of policy, out of compliance, now we can give you to the budgeting to fix these programs and get you the money you need to make your life easier, get the job done without it costing your job as well.
Thank you. Please, Brian.
Just one thing to add to that is risk assessment and priorities. A lot of times IT and the CFO and COO and CEO, they don't necessarily want to be honest with one another about who's doing what and what weaknesses are where, because again, it's a political struggle. So we're people, right? We need to get beyond that to a certain degree, but it's always going to be there. So if we have an open conversation about the risks and the costs, I mean, if you look at the way HIPAA is written, a doctor, as long as he understands what the right thing to do is, but he can't afford it, and he doesn't implement the technology, but he understands that it's needed in some legal, in some hospitals, that is HIPAA compliant. So some interpretations of the language. So it's really about understanding the priorities and setting those priorities as a group, but only after open and honest dialogue. That's the key.
Okay, thank you. Now we can open the floor. Do you like to make any questions to the panel?
Hey, good morning. My name is Claudio, work in finance. Thank you all. Very interesting, the combination of intelligence that you brought to us. It's more than a question. I'm sharing a fear with you guys. I see, the risk and we are fragile as humans. We can see that from the corporation side. I can see that from the client side. Very sophisticated clients, they are making basic mistakes nowadays. That sometimes it's hard to believe that how people that have access to everything that you can buy, right? Since AI can do everything, I'm afraid of not identifying anymore what's fake, what is not fake for an average human. Maybe MBAs will be able to identify that more easily, but how can we deal with that? Do you have an idea?
Thank you. Anyone?
Yeah, I want to ask AI that question.
You want me to open ChatGPT?
It's going to be unpopular for me to say, but I personally have not done anything in AI yet, and I know I should. I'm trying to avoid it and keep this working top as much as I can, but yeah. The only thing I can say with my limited knowledge, I think it's a question nobody wants to answer here, not even myself, but we go back to the people thing, but recently, in the past 6 months, 3 years, there's been some really powerful videos that look completely real. And now, 6 months later, we watch those videos and they look a lot less real to us. It's like our brain adapts and adjusts. Doesn't so much for everybody, and we're all gonna get caught one way or another, but I can't speak to that directly. All I want to say is go back to what I've discussed before, is if we have the right things in place, can we mitigate anything that happens quickly, nimbly, so that we can, until we start getting used to how to find these things and look for the patterns.
Thank you. So yeah, just some time management. We are past time, but we will have 15 minutes to close the panel. Okay.
I would say education. Education is key. Fundamentally strategic thinking and analytical thinking, which I feel is not something our younger generation is really getting from the schools that I feel like we used to. But then they're going to have to find it somewhere else, right? So that's back on us to basically go out and evangelize, just using your head a little bit and trying to take a step back and be a little bit more cynical, maybe, in a fun way, that we can all kind of learn from and share that information, because we learn from each other, right? We're creatures of imitation to a large degree. So
it goes back to humility, right?
yeah.
Okay. So any other questions? No. So I have a couple of them. So looking ahead 3 to 5 years, we are talking a lot about AI, automation, quantum computing, advanced analytics may redefine resilience. What opportunities do you see, and what are the guardrails that must be in place to prevent new risks or to deal with them, right?
Yeah, the guardrails are really important, and we're going to learn those as we go, unfortunately, because we're going to learn from mistakes. It's usually the way we learn. But actually, it's actually a good question for the AI itself, if we can get there. Ultimately, we need to continue down the path. We need to work with each other. But I think the 3 to 5 year time frame, we're going to see, I think, a spike in knowledge, a spike in material science. We're going to see a spike in encryption technology. That's going to shift a lot of our understandings based upon where we came from. We've all dealt with the, I forget the expression, but every new processor was an order of magnitude better. We're going to see that accelerate. Moore's Law, thank you. We're going to see that accelerate dramatically, and then we're going to see really cool stuff like new propulsion systems and a deeper understanding of physics and outer space and inner space, God willing. And I think that's up to a large degree. It's going to be based on how successful the people in this room are going forward to stave off the forces that want to take us in another direction.
Okay, thank you. So now I will direct to Marciano and Rafaelo. Also, so digital maturity is often the difference between reacting slowly and pivoting quickly. How can organizations measure digital maturity, and how should CEOs use it to guide strategy?
Well, when I said I think the alignment between business and the cybersecurity, it's a big strategy to cybersecurity guys give to the CEOs, CFO, whatever, in the C-levels, some KPIs to make this strategy go ahead. And the mistakes, well, I think it's the first one, it's not respond quickly when we are in attack. it's a big mistake. When you are in attack, we need to respond most quickly we can. It's the first one. And the second mistake, in my vision, is the executive is not clearly. Sometimes the cybersecurity team is not clearly with the executives what happened when we are under attack, and the executives team don't have clearly communication with the market, and I think it's most common we are seeing.
Okay, thank you.
I think in a way that the digital is no longer a unit or segment of our business, right? Digital became part of all of us, everything that we do a lot of the time. So, what is digital maturity? What is the maturity? What are we trying to be mature on? The spectrum is very broad, and that can mean many different things for many different organizations, and we need to be clear on what we're trying to do, who we're trying to serve, what is our crown jewel, and be able to secure that, focus on that, and filter a little bit of the noise, right? Because if you try to do everything for everyone, it becomes almost an impossible task, and it's hard to communicate or provide transparency on that, and there will be noise. So if you're not clear on what is your focus, that noise can easily derail your strategy, can easily move resources away from what's most important. So that clarity around what are your digital assets, what are you trying to accomplish as a digital organization is extremely important to make sure that the cybersecurity program wrap around in the right way.
Thank you, Rafael. Now, closing reflections, I would like to invite each one of you to answer, if you had to give CEOs and boards one piece of actionable advice to strengthen their resilience in the next 12 months, what would it be? Starting with Marciano.
I have a short list. I think the first one is understand the businessmen, the board members, understanding the basics of the security is the first one. The second one, the business should guide the cybersecurity strategy. It can do it. Have a cybersecurity executive on your board if you can. It's really important. It's not about the size of the company. The medium companies need one guy with cybersecurity methodology to talking about with the businessmen. And the guy said a lot of this, please, training your users. You need one good thing to train. You can invest a lot of money in technology, but at the end of the day, the user is the big problem that we have. And the last but not the least, it's a part of the training, but I put it in a different topic. CEO or C levels take a part in a war room simulation of a cyber attack. Do you know what is the hard life? Okay, I think it's my contribution.
Thank you, Rafael, please.
So every time that we try to run a simulation or a tabletop with C-level executives on cybersecurity, we have more people coming more stressed out of it than happy. So I just advise some caution there. I think from a board perspective, it's we touched a little bit on the cycle of disruption, the cycle of evolution. I think in a way, for the ones that have been around longer with internet, pre-internet, digital changes, blockchains, AIs, and all of that, we are in a moment of, continue to be in a moment of disruption, but there's another big cycle of disruption with the advent of AI and the increase of processing power and capabilities. I think that boards tend to have this bias on control. They like to ensure that everything is under control or have some level of control or some ability to control the business. We are in a moment that we have less and less of that. So that rewiring of how the market operates, how the industry operates, how the technology is serving our business, it's a transition. To your point on the concerns, on the fears of where AI is taking us, I think the answer to that's yet to surface, we don't know exactly how that's going to play out. There's a lot of concerns around the ethics of AI and how to create ethical development on AI. But I think that's, blockchain, distributed processing power, the singularity becoming true or not, or when becomes true. I think that board members need to be more used to the sense that they will have less control in this current transition phase. And that's where, once we acknowledge that, once we have consensus on that, I think it changes how we are thinking about those challenges, how we're thinking about those problems that we're trying to overcome. So I think that's probably the first step I would suggest encourage the boards to think about and consider.
Thank you, Rafael. William, please.
Just to add to what I said earlier about the penny rich, dollar poor, a lot of times, as I mentioned before, our minds have become very fickle thanks to cell phones, thanks to short videos and online reels, etc. So a lot of times we'll see an organization lost $10 million in an incident, and there was a program that the cyber teams urged to put together that might have cost $700,000, $1 million, $2 million. And you're in this incident, you scramble, you get it done, you have this financial loss, and everyone just kind of blows past it because we move on to the next thing. But that's $8 million, let's say, if it was $2 million to spend on a program. $8 million is a lot of money, even in a large organization. There's things you can do. You can incentivize employees, you can shore up other programs. That money can be spent, and we just overlook some of these major incidents. They make the news, and then the Kardashians have a new reality show. We forget all about it. So, I did say I was going to say agnostic to saying anything specific. Sorry that I mentioned their name. They're a paid sponsor of today. But anyway, going back, there's just a lot of these things. The senior leadership on the financial side, these things happen, people get upset, and then you move on and you say, look at all this money lost. It could have went to making us better. It could have went towards showing profits, and it's just one incident out of many. So it's just realizing, as I said much earlier, don't wait for the stuff to happen because it costs a lot more money. Take care of it now.
Thank you, William. Brian?
Ditto. Train the employees, train your people, train senior leadership. Each department needs to own cybersecurity. HR needs to own cybersecurity. IT needs to own cybersecurity. Applications development, operations. Everybody needs to take a responsibility for their piece of the communication here. To invest, right? It is, please, dear Lord, do not buy the least expensive tool out there, right? Until you have purely vetted it and made sure it knocks the socks off of everything else out there. Because most of the time you get what you pay for. Expect the worst and you'll never be disappointed. That was something my mother told me. But it's true, right? So anticipate the pitfalls. Try to look for the struggles, and expectation will help you plan for those things, and at least give you a process to work through should they happen, right? And then finally, postmortems. After the fact, the worst thing I've seen happen is they just go back to the same old behavior patterns, right? That put them in this situation to begin with, because they got the least expensive tools, which required more resources internally for them to learn and manage, and therefore they had more balls in the air, and maybe some of those guys were really angry because of all the extra work, but now you've got somebody motivated to use a really stupid password on all their servers. So, but these things are real, right? Unfortunately, this is what happens when you mix people with everything else. So we just need to take that and keep that in the backs of our minds as we work through the process.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And at this moment, I would like to thank all the panelists. Very inspiring, very important message to be humble, right, as well. And thank you, the Chamber, for the opportunity for us to discuss this important subject. And a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you for joining us, and I wish you a very productive day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.